Okay, I'm not sure what else I have to say today. I tried to go outside and that was good, but I got depressed really quickly, even though the sun's shining really bright. Because my energy just was not able to deal with, like, the cars and the traffic and the noise and the paranoia that people are always looking at me inside my car. I don't have blackout windows, so, I mean, they probably are sometimes, but I just feel unsafe, like, whenever, like, a car pulls up on my left. It's not so much on my right. For some reason, I feel like I have more control over that. But if a car pulls up on my left, I feel like if they see me and see what I look like, they're going to hurt me. That's just a feeling I've had for a very long time, probably since my son was born. Well, that was when I first got a car. Before that, my ex-husband had a car that I didn't know how to drive because it was a stick shift. And that's a whole nother story. But, there were some things back then, like when we separated, like, he was like, well, I paid for the car. You know? It's like, well, I paid for the rent. And I paid for the bed. I overall paid for way more than he did, and he would, like, always go to thrift stores and buy shit. Then he would get me gifts that I didn't even want, that weren't things like that were like my style. And then he'd be offended, like, because I felt sad about the gifts because they weren't what I wanted. Like flowers. We had this one argument because I like roses and he got me water lilies. So I'd already told him before this specific argument happened. But he had, like, basically convinced me that, like, I was selfish and I was a bitch because I wanted a different kind of flower that he couldn't afford. In what world couldn't he afford it if he hadn't been buying all that extra shit that we didn't even need? He could have got me the flowers I wanted. So it didn't matter if I told him what I wanted. It still wouldn't change. And this was like a recurrent thing about anything I ever said. At one point, we were like a year and a half into the relationship. I'm like, okay, he doesn't care about what I'm saying. I'm sick of this. And I felt disillusioned by the whole thing. I kind of wished I had stayed in this state. But, I mean, I guess I wasn't done really learning from that situation. I mean, if I was done, I would have left. So, it's like that particular day I was at, like, the university main building where you could get food and you could buy books, and I would sit there. It was kind of like a respite place. I went there in high school, too, to be away from my family. Anyways, I pretty quickly, they used to post, like, notes on a board if there was a room for rent. So that day I went and checked out 2 rooms, and both of the people wanted me to move in, because I guess I have a good personality. I'm pretty easy to get along with. These days I set boundaries, so, but these aren't, like, the one lady who was gonna let me move in kind of creeped me out. She was into kind of seance sort of things and had crystals all over the place. Which to some degree that's always freaked me out. Although I've worn crystals before, but my skin's itchy, so I don't really do that anymore. I don't really wear any jewelry because of skin irritation. I used to like to wear jewelry a lot in high school, but back then my skin wasn't as sensitive. or I just wasn't as aware of it. Sometimes it was always like my right ear would itch. Anyways, so this woman wanted me to move in, and I was like, okay, she has furniture in here. I can't afford furniture. So the other room didn't. So I was going to move in there, even though I was creeped out. Because my parents were into like mystical, spiritual, cult, metaphysical things, and I felt like most of it was damaging and just wished my parents would be more in reality or the present moment. So that's where I was always trying to be, but that gets very exhausting. Sometimes you have to let yourself dream and think about things that might not exist. But, and I've understood more lately what does and does not exist regarding metaphysics and spiritual realms. But, like, I know there's ghosts in the house I'm in. Like, a lot of them. And I kind of say hi to them. So it seems like the more I say hi to them, the more visible they're becoming to me, which freaks me out. I don't really want to know what they look like. Last night when I woke up to go to the bathroom, which on average now that's like 3 or 4 times a night, but I don't think I'm going to eat today because I would like to just sleep straight through. But I literally saw like these claw legs that were kind of see-through metallic is the best way I can describe it, kind of go around the corner. And I'm not pretending anymore that things I see aren't really there, because they are. It was kind of like some sort of spider mechanical shape. And then I saw it again go around the corner when I went into the bathroom. The more I look in the area where I know like the ghosts inhabit, the more I can see the energy. But I can't like pretend they're not there. Like that's scarier than acknowledging them, is it not? In my opinion. The first time I realized like things like this exist was when I was raising my son. I invited some spirit into my house. I didn't really know what I was doing. I went on the internet and I did some sort of like ritual. Okay. It was pretty short. It was about like I made a little piece of paper, wrote something on it, put it in a specific place. So then, whatever this energy was, it was demonic. At one point, because I could feel it right next to me when I was sitting in my room, I'd been trying to get rid of it since it appeared because I could feel when it entered after the seemingly benign ritual was over, and I was like, oh my god, I need to get this the fuck out of my house. I felt the energy shift, but it just got worse for years after that, and more things started inhabiting my apartment. I didn't know how to get them out. Now I just kind of call on God and Jesus, and I'm left alone pretty much. Even if there's things in the house, I think they're pretty harmless. This house. But in like the place I used to live, they were not harmless. Every time I'd walk into my apartment, I felt like my energy just went, like fell to the fucking floor. Like they were literally draining me. So like that particular summer when it was had gotten really bad, I would after work take my son to the park for like 2 or 3 hours. Because outside, like, I didn't feel that energy, and I felt good, even though I was tired. I had to, like, avoid my apartment because of how bad it felt. At one point, I had a Native American go in there, and he said he didn't feel anything. But, like, at the point he came in, they were kind of not there. Sometimes they weren't really there during the daytime. Certain parts of the daytime, it would go in and out a little bit. One thing I've discovered from being awake all night is that I think the vibration of the earth changes between 2 and 4 a.m. because I feel the spirits more heavily at that point. I think they kind of inhabit the earth more. I know time is a construct, so I don't quite know how this works in other places because the sun shines on different places at different times. But anyways, between 2 and 4 a.m. has some significance, I can tell. This content's a little different than what I've been posting, so if you're not interested, so be it. But this has been part of my experience, is like reckoning that there are ghosts and spirits and other things that I can't see but sometimes can. So this makes me think my parents were less crazy. One time, this is quite a funny story, but it's indicative of my mom's behavior towards me. I was lying in bed as probably a 9 or 11-year-old, and she says to me, if I think about aliens too much, they'll come and get me. Okay, so basically, I was very afraid. I couldn't stop thinking about aliens that night, as would be any child's normal reaction to such a hideous comment by a parent. But kind of helped me understand like my own like power, like being afraid for literally 8 hours straight. The aliens did not come and get me. Okay? So I was thinking about them and they didn't come. All right, Mom, you're wrong. You're wrong, Mom. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. So this kind of showed me in a way not to trust my mom. And that maybe life isn't as scary as you make it out to be, referring to my mom. Because I think it was very scary for her. I think it's still very scary for her. If you haven't watched my other content, my mom has paranoid schizophrenia. And at that point, she wasn't diagnosed with it, but she still had very weird tendencies, way of behaving, ideas, and ways of speaking. Which I understand that was and is her reality, but pretty hard on a child. Sometimes I think most of my mental difficulties like stem from like my mother's I don't know, sometimes I wondered if she's like a narcissist. Sometimes I've wondered if I'm a narcissist, but I think having opinions about how things should be is different than being a narcissist. And having opinions about how you want to be treated, that's different. But like my mom, when I last talked to her, it's like I can't tell her I'm too sad, and I can't tell her how happy I am if I'm happy. Because if I get too happy, she's like resentful about me, and I can feel the energy is very like murky and angry. And if I'm sad, she just checks out. Now, if I'm somewhere in the middle, I just feel more confused after I speak to her, because there's no emotion I have in which I'm acknowledged by her. There's like no winning that game. It just always feels very, very strange being around her. I don't know what reality she's in. You know, she's on her own journey like we all are. I mean, she's never killed anybody, so hypothetically she's harmless. But she hasn't been harmless to my mental state, I'll say that much. I didn't contact her on Thanksgiving, although she wanted me to. Because it's also like, she could call me. She didn't have to ask me to call her. And part of me doesn't care how lonely she gets. And that might be cold, but it's like she offers no benefit to my life. Not that it's not like okay to help people who can't help you back. But like, who is really benefiting from this? I'm hurt every time I talk to her. And she doesn't even seem to know I exist for the most part. I know this isn't completely true because sometimes she's like a little less checked out for like a moment or two. But I'm like, is this what schizophrenia is usually like? Are people usually this checked out from reality? I don't know. I've only really met my mom. I think I dated someone once who had some schizophrenic tendencies, but it freaked me out the same way my mom freaks me out. I guess I'm thinking the further I get away from like people who make me feel like emotionally disturbed and like confused about the universe in like a uncomfortable, like unsafe way, like the happier I'll be if I'm just like around people who like appreciate and love me. But that's not like where I'm at right now. So, I mean, part of this process of sharing videos is for me to appreciate and love me. Because that's what I've got. And like, God appreciates and loves me. Okay, that's good. So maybe I don't have to feel so alone and down today. My dad said when I was born there was like a girl in the corner of the room, which I assume was like a ghost or a spirit. And I've always wondered what that meant. Because even though my dad was like creepy in a lot of ways, and like his beliefs, like very strange to me, I think he could like see things like that, and like that he did see aliens and that he didn't know who was an alien or not, blah blah blah, on the earth, because of course there are aliens on the earth. You know, some of us are aliens in a way because we came from other places. As I already mentioned, I think I'm from Sirius, and there's something to do with the Andromeda Galaxy to do with my existence. I also know I had a past life in Egypt. I might have posted about this already, but like the same family I have now, I know was in my past life in Egypt because I kind of like asked Spirit or God for some reconciliation about like why I felt so shitty or like why I was in this family. I think it's to like turn the tables or like turn karma around for like the abuse they inflicted on me in that lifetime. They took my voice, was what the message was, and I just kept crying under my pillow because I was remembering that my voice was taken. I don't really know what this meant, but I saw something else that like the Egyptians had like a fascination with death. So I think there was some really disturbing rituals going on in that time period, you know? You can kind of sense that in like some of the music regarding like what they play in like History Channel documentaries about Egyptian culture. That kind of like dark, wavy energy of the Egyptian culture and the music. There's something sacred about it, but there's something abusive about it. Oh, and I think that my bones from that lifetime are buried in the walls of like a smaller pyramid somewhere. I've always had kind of a connection, fascination with ancient Egypt. I'm sure if I went there, there'd be like a million revelations. Someday I'll get to. I know. My life is just beginning. And I just want to say to like other people with like depression, like there's nothing wrong with you. You know? Like there wasn't something else you could have done to not be depressed. And I know you're doing your best. If no one's told you that today. Keep going. We'll make it.